Good morning, Year 6. So welcome to week 2 of home learning. This week in English, we are going to be looking at poetry. Now, some of you might be excited for that, some of you might not be so excited, but we're going to do it exactly the same as we would in school. So we'll do bit by bit each day. I'll do a little example one that you can use to inspire yours. So this week we are going to be using the poem called The Sound Collector, and we're going to do our poems as a Christmas theme, but following the same ideas, the same structure. So let's have a look at the poem together then. So let's read it together, and as we're reading it, think of any things that might pop out at you as we go. So, The Sound Collector. A stranger called this morning, dressed all in black and grey, put every sound into a bag and carried them away. The whistling of the kettle, the turning of the lock, the purring of the kitten, the ticking of the clock, the popping of the toaster, the crunching of the flakes, when you spread the marmalade, the scraping noise it makes, the hissing of the frying pan, the ticking of the grill, the bubbling of the bathtub as it starts to fill, the drumming of the raindrops on the window pane, when you do the washing up, the gurgle of the drain, the crying of the baby, the squeaking of the chair, the swishing of the curtain, the creaking of the stair. A stranger called this morning, he didn't leave his name, left us only silence, life will never be the same. Okay, so what I want you to do is pause the video and have a look at this question. So can you spot the rhyme scheme that is going throughout the poem? Now, when we looked at 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, we had a look at the rhyme scheme and what words rhymed in that poem. So pause the video and have a look if you can spot it. Okay, so hopefully you have noticed that every other line rhymes. So we've got grey, away, lock and clock, flakes, makes, grill, fill, window, pane, drain, chair, stair, name and same. So in poetry, now we may have talked about this, we may not have. So that would give us an A, B, C, B rhyme scheme. So all that means, and it's used letters to help you, is that the first line, so the A, doesn't rhyme with anything else because there's no other A's in our stanza. So this word mustn't rhyme. Also, the line that I've labelled C, that line doesn't rhyme with any other stanza because there's no other C's in our poem. But this line is a B and this line is also a B, which means that you just rhyme the second and fourth line of every stanza. And we're going to have a go at that, and you can practice coming up with rhymes if you're not too confident. So again, can we have a look at this question? So can you spot any repetition in the poem? So have a pause and see if you can find any. Okay, so you might have noticed that it starts, a stranger called this morning on the first stanza. And the last stanza also starts with the exact same line. So there's a bit of repetition there. There's also some repetition on these two stanzas. So each line begins with the. So the whistling, the turning, the purring, the ticking, the crying, the squeaking, the swishing, the creaking. So all of those start with the. So that's a bit of repetition as well. The whole poem is quite repetitive because you're listing all the sounds basically. So our poem might be repetitive in that way as well. So now I want you to have a pause and think about the themes of each stanza. So if you were to come up with a summary, what's the first one about? What's the second one about? What's the third one about? Now we know that they're all about sounds because that's what the poem's all about. So I want you to think in more detail. What kinds of sounds? Where do the sounds happen? So have a think about those ones. So pause the video and have a go. Okay, so hopefully you have found something like this. So the first stanza, which we call a top in a poem. So you have a top and a tail. So the top's the very beginning stanza. The tail is the very end one. So in the top, we've got an introduction of the idea of a person. And in this one, the idea is that they're taking all the sounds away. So the first stanza introduces the person and what they're taking away. So in our poem that we're going to write in the rest of the week, they're going to be taking away all the things associated with Christmas. In this one, it's all the sounds. Now, the second stanza is all about things that might be related to mornings. So you have the kettle, so your parents might get up and put the kettle on. The lock, so if you're leaving the house. A purring of a kitten, the ticking of a clock. So all things that you might think about, associate with in the morning. Then the third and fourth stanzas are very similar. Now, these are all sounds that you would find inside. So a toaster, the crunching of your cereal, the frying pan, the grill, a bathtub. So all of these things you'd find inside your house. So these two are similar because they're all about inside. So we've got the introduction, things that happen in the morning, and things that are associated with inside somewhere. Then the next stanza, it goes outside. So we're thinking about raindrops, we're thinking about windows, we're thinking about drains. So sounds that are from the outside. So in our Christmas poem, we're going to think about what the outside looks like at Christmas time. So beyond your house. Then the next one, we've got nighttime. So things that happen at nighttime. So a bit of a difference to the morning. So here we've got the morning sounds. And now we've got the night sounds. So like crying of the baby, a chair, the swishing of the curtain, creaking of the stairs. You're sort of going upstairs to bed. So these two are direct opposites. And then at the end, which we call the tail, we link all the way back to the beginning. So the first stanza and the last stanza are very similar. So a stranger called this morning, so it's the same, and it sort of concludes, rounds it off, so it confirms that he has taken everything. So hopefully you came up with some similar ideas. Now, this week, as I've said, you're going to create your own poem, and we're going to do it shape by shape like we do in school, and I'm going to explain the shapes in a second. So we're going to use the idea of somebody coming and taking things away. We're going to use the structure, so we're going to stick to the summary of each stanza and the rhyme scheme. So we're going to try and rhyme the second and fourth lines. Our poem is going to be called The Christmas Collector. So instead of somebody coming and stealing away all the sounds, they're going to be coming and stealing away anything related to Christmas. So think about things that you think of when you think of Christmas. It might be snow, snowflakes, Christmas trees, stockings, presents, all sorts of things like that. So we're going to do that, and you're going to come up with some ideas for that in a little bit. So to do this, we need to think about what the actual shapes are, and we're going to use our summary that we've just come up with to do this. So, like we would have on our board in school, we've got our positive, negative arrows. We've got our little person. So this is the reader in this instance, not a main character because we're doing a poem. So the reader, we take the reader through the entire poem, the reader's going to start on the top. So I've put a little top hat for this to remind us. So the top of the poem, which introduces what the poem's about, what's going to be taken. So that's about going to introduce the idea of Christmas. Then we've got this one. Oops, that says colour, not Christmas. Then the second shape is all about morning. So instead of morning sounds, we're going to think about what happens on the morning of Christmas. So that should be really easy. Then the next two stanzas are going to be our insides. Now, they're two different insides, so try not to repeat the same. So think about inside your house at Christmas time. What does your house look like? Then we're going to go outside. What do you see outside? So you see lots of pretty lights, maybe snow, things like that. Then we're going to think about the night of Christmas. So what happens after the exciting day of Christmas once you've woken up in the morning? What is the nighttime like? Probably still very exciting. And then I've got a little tail here to remind us that we've got our tail, which is linked to our top, to round off and conclude the poem. So very similar to the top. So what I want you to do is have a think and mind map a few ideas of things that you could use to describe. Now, don't worry about the top and the tail, because that's a little bit different. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mini mind maps with just some words coming off about what you could include. So a mind map that just says morning and things that you associate with the morning on Christmas Day. 2 inside ones and things that maybe you can look around your house if you've got lots of Christmas decorations and see what you can spot. Outside, again, what can you see outside usually at Christmas time? What's it like at night time? So all I want you to do today is mind map some ideas, some words that you could put into your poem when we start it tomorrow. Now, if you don't celebrate Christmas, which I know some of us don't, you can write your poem as winter, so the winter collector. So again, do exactly the same thing. What's it like on winter mornings? It's nice and cold. What's it like inside? So maybe there's a fire crackling, things like that. Outside, lots of snow, people wearing coats and things like that. So you can do a winter poem. So everybody should be able to do a collector poem themselves. So that is your task today, just to do some mind maps for some ideas. And tomorrow we are going to write a part of the poem, so not the whole bit. So over this week, we will write bit by bit. So by the end of Thursday this week, you will have a completed poem. So that's all for today. So enjoy collecting your ideas. Maybe you can ask some of your parents at home. If you're stuck for ideas, maybe you could pop us an email, and I will see you back here tomorrow.